Russian authorities are now reported to have stepped up border checks as potential conscripts attempt to flee the country rather than be sent to fight in Ukraine.
Elsewhere, the US is now warning of a decisive response to Vladimir Putin's threat of using nuclear weapons. Yes, he's gone there. Retired Army General and military strategist Mick Ryan joins us now from Brisbane. Mick, you have been observing Vladimir Putin for certainly the months of the Ukraine war and much longer. Do you believe he's bluffing when he's talking about nuclear weapons here?
Well, g'day, Michael. Well, Putin and the Russian military have as their doctrine to threaten the use of nuclear weapons in regional conflicts. This is just a continuance of his threats throughout this war that when things don't go right for him, he may lash out with nuclear weapons. We should never take these things off the table when we consider what the Russians might do, but the chances of him doing so are still pretty low.
OK, when we're talking about nuclear weapons, we always start with the proposition that no nuke is a good nuke, and there are separate types of nuclear weapons. There's, as you well know, tactical nuclear weapons and strategic nuclear weapons. It's believed he's more talking about tactical nuclear weapons. What do we mean when we talk about tactical nuclear weapons?
When we talk about tactical nuclear weapons, there's two considerations. Firstly, they're shorter range, they're not intercontinental weapons. They are much shorter range. And secondly, the yield of the weapons is much lower. But at the end of the day, whether the range is shorter and the yield is smaller, the use of nuclear weapons is still an awful thing to consider. And I think that, even when Russia is doing poorly, it is unlikely they'll use them.
OK, let's go to the broader strategic outlook. We know Vladimir Putin is mobilising the reservists. Will that be enough to boost Russia's clearly faltering war effort in Ukraine?
Well, this mobilisation process, which at the moment is pretty chaotic, but I expect them to gradually get their hands around, isn't going to be a decisive intervention in this war. It's not going to change the course of the war for Russia like this northern offensive changed the course of the war for the Ukrainians. However, they will be able to deploy in tens, if not hundreds of thousands of soldiers over the next 6 months. And really what it will do is prolong the war and any eventual Ukrainian victory.
Winter is fast approaching, the northern winter is fast approaching, of course, so that window for territorial gains and victory on the battlefield before the snow comes is slowly closing. How crucial will the next, say, 2 or 3 months be, in your view, on the war in Ukraine there?
Well, they're very important. Every day is very important in a war like this. The Ukrainians will continue to exploit their gains around the northeast. They're moving slowly but surely in the south. But we shouldn't expect the coming of winter for everything to stop. It may slow some things down, but the Ukrainians and Russians know winter very well. They know what they can do, and I expect there'll still be military operations throughout the winter, albeit at a slower pace than we've seen over the last few months.
Just going back to your comments about reservists and how you believe it'll eventually get on track for Russia, do we fear we could be talking about the Ukraine war for not just months ahead, but possibly into the next year and beyond?
Oh, I think that's absolutely the case. There's no prospect of this war being over this year. Both sides have demonstrated a pretty strong will to succeed here. Both have massive resources available to them. There is almost no prospect of it being over in 2022, and we should expect that it will go into 2023 and provide support to the Ukrainians accordingly.
OK, General Mick Ryan, as always, really appreciate your insights. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Michael.